Hello everyone. Today we're back with another video about a bot model, which is heavily requested nowadays, which is Magnus Carlsen, the best player alive, versus the Sensei bot, a bot which has beaten more than 99% of the world chess population and is nearly unbeatable. It's like having two Avengers fight in front of you. The two games that I have for you are so insane. So yeah, that's it for the intro, and yeah, let's get started. So the first game started with a Sicilian defense. So e4, c5, knight f3, e6. So the Khan Sicilian or the Taimanov. So we have a Sensei choosing the Taimanov Sicilian with knight c6 and queen c7. This is known as the Bastrikov variation of the Taimanov Sicilian. And the idea is basically to control the center with the queen, the bishop, and the knight, and also play a6 at some point, as well as b5, expand on the queen side, and start an attack. And this is exactly what happens. So we have stock Magnus here playing the English attack. So the idea is basically putting the queen in d2, playing f3, and launching your pawns forward with g4 and h4, and creating a massive attack while castling queenside as well. So a6, going back to the Consilian, knight c6 and f3, so stopping knight g4. Knight e5, seizing the control for some central squares, as well as some infiltration ideas, and c4 in the future, forking the queen and the bishop. Not right now, of course, because the bishop would just take and he would castle, gaining some time. So we have Magnus castling, and we see the makings of the attack with b5 from Sensei, launching his pawn forward, expanding on the queen side, and also looking to fianchetto the bishop on b7. Magnus follows up with g4, counter-attacking on the queen side, on the king side, which is not really the best response. So the best response is knight b3, acknowledging the attack while playing something like with your h pawn and starting your attack afterwards, because the problem when you do it this way, there's basically no attack. He can literally stop your expansion with h6. If you play this, there's nothing here and there's no attack anymore. And if you try to go like Magnus did, so first he played king b1, which is not really the most accurate move, but whatever. Bishop b7 from Sensei, and then rook g1. And we can see from the evil bar that Sensei has a pleasant advantage from the fact that Sensei is just faster on the queen side. Sensei has more control over the c4 square, where he can plant a knight in the future. Not right now, because yes, it would be taken again by the bishop. And Sensei has more has more presence on the queen side because of the pawn on b5, and then the most important thing is that he can launch an attack on the queen side way faster than Magnus can. So b4, immediately attacking the knight. The knight rotates here, seizing control of these two squares. Then bishop c6, attacking the knight. And the best response here is f4, immediately attacking. Because after takes, queen takes, we have knight b6, but here you have to play knight f3. So if you don't play knight f3, basically imagine rook b8, he goes queen f2, and he protects the knight and prepares f4 as well. And we can see from the evil bar already that he has a pleasant advantage. If you play bishop b7, it's 0.5, but it's enough for computers to gain. It's enough for computers to win. So the only move here is knight takes f3, counter-attacking with a fork. So we have queen g2, and then queen takes e4, so attacking the bishop, sacrificing the rook. We have knight takes a8, queen takes c3, and then rook h1, which is the only move in the position. Uh, then you had knight c7 to escape, to try to do something with the knight. Knight takes a6 to escape, but the knight is trapped, of course, after knight takes g. Like you just lose the rook. That's it. You lose the rook. It's +4, even though it's just +2, because of the weakening of the black king. It's still a very, very, very pleasant advantage for black. So we have queen take, knight takes f8. Then the only move, so rook h1 and bishop d6. Again, attacking the h2 pawn. If you take, of course, back rank GG, and it's over. So, uh, Magnus has to get the knight out with knight b6, and if you take, oops, if you take, he takes the knight, so he attacks the knight one more time, knight c4, and the only move here, which is queen e4, of course, is being found by Sensei. Bishop d3 developing with a tempo, but you can grab the pawn on g4, which actually was not the top engine move. The top engine move was queen c6, seizing more central presence and beginning the attack. So queen e2 d5 or h5. No, what am I doing? No, the knight is hanging. Sorry. H5 attacking this. If he goes here, you go knight takes g5 and he lost the pawn. And he follows up with g takes, and then you can take with the rook with some pressure on the h file with a 0.9 advantage for black. So we grab the pawn, queen f2 from Magnus, and then from Sensei d5, which is not a good move because you make the knight come back to a pleasant position, attacking the queen with a tempo, so attacking the queen, while you could just take the pawn. I don't know why. Well, oops. I don't know why he didn't really go for this. Maybe this, but it's not worth it. After queen f4, you protect everything. Maybe this, you just go d5. You just go here or d5, and everything is protected. Knight d2, and you're completely winning. This is not good because he just takes here, and he has back rank ideas, but for instance, just knight here, going untrapping your knight is good. So we have knight e3, so which is a really good move for Magnus. Queen h3 and bishop f1, so both are the best moves of the computer. Then counter-attacking the queen, which was not the only move. You could play queen h5 too, but the problem here is that he goes bishop e2 and pins this, and pins the knight to the queen, and now you have to play this. And he plays queen takes f3, this, and even though you get a fork, he can play knight takes d5, a really good move. And the idea is that after the exchange, he can play rook h1 check, and he unpins himself. He unforks himself, and he can play like rook takes d5. White is much better here because the black rook can't activate. You can play this, but it takes too much time. And also we have some hanging pawns in here. So after queen e2, we have queen h5. Queen e2, sorry. We have knight e4, so the only move. This queen h5. Then bishop g2 and a knight fd2 check. So of course he doesn't win a queen because rook takes, and then we take back. And this is what happened. So knight takes the rook. So here you can see that Sensei sacrificed the two pieces for the rook, which normally isn't good. But the thing is that now you will castle and you will bring your rook into the game. And the bishop here has no scope, literally. So imagine if the bishop goes here, you can just play this, a5. You totally lock in the bishop. He can try to undermine, but it will take too much time, and you can get the rook into the game, which is really good for you. Again with this bishop, which is really good, it can pin the knight, for instance. Not a good move. And you have a really good position, even though it's plus point 0.3, it's not that easy to play for white. So castles, queen takes b4, which is not played. I don't know why, because now you just hang on to the pawn. Maybe I don't really know why. Maybe this was wasn't good for Magnus. Yeah, Magnus wasn't really satisfied, but after this, it's really good for him. Bishop f4, you just play h4 here, counter-attacking the queen, and yes, it's the only move of the engine to keep an advantage. But I don't really know why Magnus didn't take the pawn. So now we have a5 hanging onto the pawn, and now we have a really good position as the rook will activate really easily. The bishop can snipe literally the entire diagonal, and the queen can activate really easily. So a really good position for black. So knight d1, trying to reroute the knight and maybe play h4 in the future to kick out the queen and start something over here, starting some counterplay, or maybe play queen e2 in the future to trade queens and stop this attack, and then reroute the knight into the center of the board, controlling the central squares. Not now, because of course the bishop would just take. So bishop h2 here, bishop f3 attacking the queen, bishop e5 of course defending the bishop. We have the reroute of the knight that we just talked about, so knight f2, and now the bishop f4. And what's happening here is that Sensei is beginning an attack. So basically, Sensei is replacing, is putting all of its pieces on the perfect squares, and what it will do is that it will create the threat of an attack. So it will basically bait Magnus into defending himself, defending his king, while Sensei will push the pawns and easily win, because we have literally on 1, 2, 3, 4, a 4 on 0. As we can see, it's minus 1.8, while for you maybe it would be minus 3, because you would screw up the position immediately. I would do it too. Well, not so sure. I could hold this position with white for some time, but of course I'll just lose because it's minus 2 nearly, and Sensei plays nearly perfect moves. So yeah, it's hard. Queen d1, trying to put the rook and see some central presence. So queen e3 is the best move here, forking the two pieces. And forking the two pieces, what I mean by that is that the queen has to stay protecting the bishop. And if you play, for instance, this, it's really bad because you trade queens and you literally push these pawns. We see rook b8 here, but rook c8, yeah, it will come out on the top. Just targeting those pawns and just launching all of these pawns forward. We see that we have one piece disadvantage for Sensei. So Sensei is down a knight, but he has so many pawns here that it doesn't even matter in the end game, and he's completely winning. And spoiler at the end, Sensei wins an absolutely ridiculous endgame by literally using no pawns, so there will be no pawns remaining, and Sensei will win with just those two pieces, as you will see. So going back, we have bishop g5. So of course, Sensei needs to keep his bishop because he is down a piece. So while Sensei has a lot of pawns here, he needs to keep some pieces on the board to generate some counterplay. Rook f1. So not really an accurate move. I don't know why Magnus didn't attack the queen here. I don't understand why. Maybe there was something down the line, but I think that was the most intuitive and best thing to do, because it basically gets the queen out of the position, even though it replaces it goes here to attack. It's really good for white. For white. Yeah, it's good for white. It's better than not doing anything like this garbage move. So rook f2. And then queen d4, so pinning itself. Not pinning, but trying to move the pawns forward to fork here, and trade queens in the future to have a bishop and a rook versus a knight, a bishop and a rook with so many pawns. It's guaranteed to win. So here we have a4 continuing the attack. As I said before, it's baiting Magnus to defend himself. We have queen e2 here and a3, so he's knocking on the door. Bishop h5, so playing this counter attacking. Here you can play bishop f6, just keeping an eye on the diagonal and stopping the rook, which is what Sensei plays, but actually it's not a good move. Rook c7 was better. Because the thing is that here you stop the king from ever running in the endgame. So what I mean by that is that in the endgame the king will be paralyzed by this pawn. So imagine if we trade here, the king is totally paralyzed on the edge of the board. The king cannot come. And by playing this, what you allow is that you allow in the future counterplay with the king moving forward and defending the position in the endgame, even though it's extremely hard to do so. Rook f4, queen a7, so defending the pawn. Here, an attempt to trade queens, trading queens immediately, and now we will see the power of this pawn storm. So g6, not g6, rook c7, first defending, and then it baits Magnus into taking, and now, as I said, g6, it takes the pawn, c4 for Magnus, trying anything. Sensei coming back, hitting the knight, and then here now we take, and it's really, really bad news because yeah, those pawns are rolling. So h4, it's a race. The king is coming. What did I say about the king? The problem with playing bishop f6 was that the king would be coming in the endgame. If Sensei had kept the king isolated in that box, the advantage would be so much more, would be so much higher because of how inactive the king would be. f5, throwing everything forward. So here, trying to protect and control the dark squares. Also getting out of the way of the fork. Here, so just bishop g7, and we have the king moving out here, and basically Magnus has no moves. He has no play here because of the pawn, and it's extremely hard to hold a position which is basically -4 here, -3.2, and yeah, those pawns are going forward, so even you can even lose the pawn with check, which is what Magnus does, but the king is so active and the pawns are so active that you can basically lose the bishop, I think, and it will still be -1. So wait, let's confirm this. Yeah, this way, actually, it's not good because you stop the pawn, yeah. But I think that in some positions you can even lose the bishop and you can be fine. So we have rook e3 trying to do anything over here to stop the pawns, to put some pressure. As you can see, Magnus did not take this free pawn because the pawns are just rolling. There's nothing you can do. You go here, you go... Oops. What? You can't even go there, sorry. Um, you just have to sack the knight. There's nothing you can do. And even trying to stop the pawns, you lose your bishop. So I have bishop d4, and the rook goes all the way back. It attacks the pawns, and basically he runs over here, making the rook go to g5, and the rook threatening the fork and to stop the pawn. So for instance, you play this. There's knight takes c5, and then there's the fork picking up the pawn here with the bishop on g4, which is really, really not good for black. So the only move, one of the only moves here is h2, which is not played, and instead Sensei opts for bishop e3. We then have uh, um, Magnus sacrificing the rook because there's nothing else you can do. The pawns are too fast, you have to sacrifice material. And now you will see how strong chess computers are. So basically, you have a position which is unwinnable for any human. What time? Unwinnable? Well, it depends, but it's extremely hard to win because you have a pawn. You have a pawn under pressure here, so the king will basically come to the pawn. You will stop this. You will take this pawn, and you have a passed pawn. So it's really, really, really hard for a human to win. Even though it says f4 is the best move because yeah, you see it on the computer. No, no, no. It's not easy at all. Even for me, it would take me a lot of time to win this, and I wouldn't do it in the best way because of how hard it is. But Sensei is 3000 elo, so let's see how it does. So first of all, it attacks the knight. It completely sacrifices this pawn because what it does is that it will play rook a5, which is what happens, and attack this. So the plan here is to trap the knight, basically. So, as you will see, Sensei will basically trap the knight on the edge of the board, take it, and checkmate Magnus, who will only have a bishop, and yeah, now it's easily winning, because you trade, for instance, the rook for the bishop, and you promote, since this is a dark square, you come with your king, you take this, and easy peasy. So, we have Magnus, who sacrifices the pawn himself, because there is nothing he can do. Absolutely nothing he can do. Imagine he goes here, you basically take the pawn here, you go rook a3, this, and I think that you can just, yeah, take the bishop. It's -3, and again, for a human, you have. It's not that hard now because you can basically find the pin and maybe win the knight, sacrifice the bishop for the knight, and win easily a rook endgame. But the thing is that it's not that easy if white plays perfectly. Of course, Magnus Carlsen does not play perfectly, but it's really, really not that easy. So, coming back, we have a4 takes, and now you will see how the knight will get trapped. So, knight e7, checking the king. The king can go here, yes, but there's a fork, and now this is not winning at all. You just keep an eye on the pawn. There's no way to win here with black. It's over. Yeah, of course he has to play king c3 and block the pawn. Otherwise, if he goes backwards or does some random shit, of course, you just bring the king and it's easy. You bring on the dark squares, of course, to avoid any bishop check on the white diagonals. So we go back. King g5, he brings the king up, and here we see that Sensei brings the bishop back. So the idea is to play basically king f5, this, and trap the knight. It's easy. So if he comes here, we have this, and the knight gets trapped really easily with this, and no, sorry, not this, because the knight would take, but the knight gets trapped in some way, shape, or form. This king f6, and the knight is going to be trapped with, first of all, rook a3, cutting off the king, which is extremely important in an endgame. So even you can learn from this. Cutting off the king is one of the most important things in the endgame, because if the king is inactive, you can basically play with your bishop and with your rook in some intelligent way and win the game, because white does not have enough material to defend this position. So bishop c8, we have bishop f4, bringing the bishop here and creating a box for our king, for the king. As we saw earlier, the best move with bishop f6 was basically to constrain the king as much as possible. It was to give the king as least the least freedom possible, so that it has the least legal moves and can move the least, so that you can use your own king to create much more counterplay and win the game. So here we have rook h3 using the rook here. So you cannot, of course, trade this, because if you trade the knight for the bishop, it's really bad news as the king is cut off. If the king was not cut off, this would be a draw. This, so you see, oops, spoiling the end. Oops, 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 oops. So what you can see here is that Magnus does not take this because the king is cut off. It's completely over. If the king was here, it would be a draw. It's really, really instructive. If the king is on c3, it's a draw. But if the king is on c1, it's completely over. As you see, -8. I didn't even see that. -8 on the evil bar. Wow. I thought it was like -6, something like that. So, Magnus is desperately trying to defend himself, knight b4, but yeah, it's just over. The king is completely stranded on the corner, as you can see. No legal moves. All of this is controlled. There's nothing the king can do. And basically, the knight will get trapped. You can play rook h7 here, I guess, to try to trap the knight, but the advantage drops a lot because the king gets active and the pieces get active with king d4 and this coming. So the position is still winning, but it's a lot harder because the king again is free. You have to keep the king stranded on the back rank to win. So, of course, Sensei is stronger than me, so he does not blunder 4 points of advantage in 2 moves. Instead, he plays the best move, which is basically keeping the tension on in the position. The king cannot go here, the king cannot go here. White has no moves, literally. White's best move is bishop c2, which Magnus does not plays, and after c3, the pawn is really advanced. The knight has no moves. Literally, it's trapped, as I told you before. No moves. If the knight goes here, it has no moves as well with king c4. King c4, this and this. So there's nothing the knight can do with king a3 and checkmate incoming. Of course, there's some way, I guess, to defend knight a7, but yeah, just rook f1, it's GG's. So, we have bishop e3 and the knight getting trapped, so the knight has no legal moves. If the knight goes here, it's still trapped, and you just go king c6 and win it. And again, the king is cut off. I can't stress this enough. It's so important that the king is cut off, because if the king wasn't cut off, it would be a lot harder to win this position. Even though now, with no knight, white has no counterplay. So, knight f7, the knight gets taken, king h2, and now, yes, sacrificing the pawn. I don't know what this garbage move is. I really don't know what this is. This is some... Yeah, that's a trash move. Like, you could say, yeah, it's a sacrifice. No, you just lost a pawn, activated your opponent's king, and it's a lot harder to win. Well, it's not that hard to win now because you have opposite color bishop. So basically, the bishop can't attack themselves. So this controls the white squares and this controls the dark squares. So the bishop are independent of each other and no one can do anything to the other. So if you just play on the dark squares, the white bishop becomes an unnecessary piece. So you have king c2 and now rook f2. He takes the pawn, but now it's not the same situation because you play on the dark squares, and you isolate the king. So bishop a5, the king has to go here, and now you basically cut the king off, which is again not the best move. I don't understand why he didn't play king c5, which is, yeah, mate. I don't really understand why cutting the king off. Maybe he was worried about stalemate, but what stalemate here? King here, like bishop a5 this, and you just play like king here. It's stalemate. So I don't really understand why Sensei choose to play rook f4, but still, it's stalemate, so there is not really a problem. Rook f3, rook c4 check, and yeah, GG's. So it's extremely instructive. So How you win this is basically you constrain the king as much as possible. You get the king to a box. Basically, you do not allow it to move, and you play on the color opposite to the bishop. So, for instance, if there is a light squared bishop like here, you play on the dark squares with the king, with the bishop, and the rook. This is so instructive, and this is so important because it plays to so many endgames. For instance, knight and bishop checkmate. It's basically this. It's all about controlling squares, controlling where the opponent's king can go, and not letting it escape. So we have bishop f5. So Magnus can't do anything because you play on the dark squares. You play on the dark squares, and you see the best move here, of course, rook c3. You box the king even more, and everything is on a dark square, so this bishop can't do anything to you. It's totally useless. It would be better if white had not had that bishop because it's such a useless piece. There's nothing it can do. Like play bishop c2 here, play defense. Okay, I just come here. Like there's nothing. There's basically nothing. You attack the bishop. You come here, I guess you can play something like rook d3, and you checkmate him soon because of how constrained the king is. Whoa, oops, here. So bishop f5, oops, bishop f5, yes, by Magnus, then bishop d2, and here, yeah, it's game over. What Sensei is doing is trying to checkmate Magnus. And as we can see, Magnus can't do anything. It's all forced. Rook f2, trying to put Magnus in Sukswang, so he gives the move back to Magnus, who has to move his king, and again infiltrating on the dark squares. If you infiltrate on the light squares, there's some annoying bishop check. Of course, you see it's still made here, but it's still annoying, and it controls some of the squares you need to control yourself. So here, and again, there's nothing he can do. Bishop a4, bishop a3 is a waiting move, so he gives the move back to Magnus, and he cuts the king off because, of course, if, for instance, he plays this, it's still mate in 5 because of some thing like that, which cuts the only king's escape square, but still, it's not easy at all for Magnus to do anything. So we have bishop e6. Magnus trying to do something, but yeah, it's futile because he will get mated in a few moves. And here Sensei blunders. I think there was a mate with King C3. Again, sometimes Sensei plays these weird moves. Like I don't know why he didn't play King C3 here. It was an obvious checkmate, like in 5. Imagine you have bishop here, you can play like rook c2 or something like that. You can sway the king even more, bishop d3 or anything really. You just play bishop b2 here, GG. So I don't really get why. I don't really understand why Sensei didn't go for this like trivial mate. But whatever, a mate is a mate. So he brings his king and brutally checkmates Magnus. So he forces Magnus to go this way because again, if Magnus had not gone this way, there would be bishop a3, and now it's over. And I think, of course, he would have seen the mate in 3 like this, and the game would be over. But yeah, whatever. He just plays this, gets the bishop, and checkmates Magnus. So, wow, this was a really impressive game, a 100 move game, and it was basically a masterclass from Sensei in playing the Taimanov or Khan Sicilian, basically attacking, how you deal with attacks when basically your opponent is just throwing things at you. There will always be except if you're like completely getting destroyed or completely dead, there will always be a way to survive the attack. And here we can see that Even though Magnus is launching his own pawns, Stockfish does not care. Sensei, sorry, does not care, and we see that Sensei still has not castled. Because the thing is that if Sensei had castled, the attack would be serious. The attack against Black's King would be serious. But now, since the king is in the center and the king is very well protected, there's nothing these pawns do. They're attacking like it's like having school shooters go to school during holidays. Like there's no one there. Don't go to school. Don't try to I don't know like rob a bank if like there's no money at the bank. You understand? I think you get it. So there's no threat to g5. There's no threat to h4. If Magnus had played h4, you just play b4 and you counter attack directly. Knight a4, of course, and I think we get the same thing with bishop b7. Or just, yeah, bishop b7 is good, but striking in the center, just trying to undermine the white setup here is really good too. Bishop a2 and bishop d7 would be good here, as we can see. So one of the top engine moves, yeah, bishop d7, really just attacking the knight, forcing it to move, and forcing Magnus to attack you. Even though, yeah, there is nothing. You just play like knight c4, you fork the queen and the bishop. Queen f2, I think you take. Yeah, you take. And you trade the rooks, but you can just play, I guess, yeah. It's not that easy, but you blockade with the knight. It would be a better thing, yeah. Because if you play this, you open up the lines for your opponent. You open up you open them up for literally no reason at all. Whereas if you just play knight h5 here, there's nothing you can do. And also knight h5, this blockade of an attack by the knight is really common. Like someone trying to launch their pawns and then you just blockade with the knight and cool, there is nothing for them. So of course you could say, yeah, this is really bad, but yeah, there's nothing here. You just play like you can even long castle, but I'm not really sure about this, but yeah, it's not really losing. You can just play f takes e6. The problem is that he does not have enough attacking firepower, and speaking of knight e6, it's just mate here. So we can see uh, we can see how effective this knight blockade is, basically killing the position. If the opponent tries to attack you, just take all of its pieces. That's it. If he plays this, you play queen takes f4, and you trade queens. It's over because you have a lot more pawns. And yeah, this was literally a masterclass by Sensei, who destroyed Magnus from beginning to end. Of course, with some weird moves, like not playing some obvious checkmates. For instance, at the end with the mate in 3, I don't really understand why Sensei didn't play that. It seems like Sensei or Magnus sometimes have some bugs. Like they don't they play really good moves throughout the game, but an obvious move like attacking Trap Knight or something like that, they won't play and play only the second line of the engine. So yeah, but it still was a fascinating battle, and yeah, tell me in the comments what you would like to see then, and get out of here.